Relationships can be complex. They can be many things, some complicated even, and really complex. You have two or more, depending on your preferences and how you form relationships, people coming together to form something, to create something, to be. Oftentimes, that happens before we really get to know ourselves. Now, two or more people coming together to build. Both people or all people lacking self-knowing. Let's just pause and be with that for a second. If I do not know myself, that means that in relationship with this other person, I'm likely to have many hiccups. I'm likely to have many false perceptions, ideas. Maybe I even outsource the things that pain me, trigger me, even my happiness. Perhaps I have some idea that this other person is responsible for making me happy. They can be complex relationships. And in this moment, I'm thinking about how along the way of our lives, we tend to discover more and more about ourselves. How we communicate or not, how forthcoming we are or not, the transparency we extend or perhaps hide. Are we someone who rises to the occasion to have the difficult conversation, or do we avoid? Are we lost inside the anxiety and insecurities, or are we projecting those things onto others? Who are we in relationships? How do we show up and invite and encourage our partner to do the same? Do we? Something that's on my mind in this moment is really about outgrowing the person we're with. Sometimes we outgrow people, and it's okay. It's normal. It's natural. We outgrow people. So I want you to reflect in this moment, if you're in a relationship, reflect on what the ingredients are, how you feel inside of it. Have you found yourself having the same conversation over and over again, expecting change, hoping for change, waiting for change, being frustrated, upset, agitated, and overwhelmed because change has not come? Now, that can be the result of many things. And have you thought, perhaps I've outgrown this person? Maybe we're no longer aligned. Especially if maybe we entered into a relationship when we were young and we established families and we just kept going throughout the years. Sometimes people wake up in their 40s and 50s and they say, this isn't what I really want. This doesn't reflect the connection that I desire. And why is it so hard to get my partner on board with seeing this? Let's try therapy. Oh no, I don't want to do therapy. I'm not doing that. No, nothing's wrong. Let's try coaching. No, I'm not doing that. Nothing's wrong. Why do you want to change? This is how it's always been. Why are you changing things now? You know, there's this podcast that talked about, no, I don't need to hear that. You listen to it. When we find ourselves brushed against that resistance, we have to ask ourselves, Are we in a partnership? Relationships require relating, and sometimes we're met with a rude awakening that, wow, I've established and built my life with this person who really is not invested in our growth, who really is not interested in looking within, facing the things that are no longer functioning. What do you do then? So many people, they carry on, they suppress their truths, they abandon themselves because it isn't going anywhere. They're afraid of what others might say. Maybe they've established this family, they have children, all of the things that they've invested. I'll just sort of suck it up. But every day of that person's life is sort of being chiseled away at because the angst remains. The agitation remains. The loneliness remains. The frustration. It's there. And we all know that these invisible things hide in our bodies, and they cause many realities, many dis-eases, from depression to some other diagnoses, maybe stress-related. The body keeps the score, right? And it's also keeping the score of what's happening today, not just the yesteryears of our lives. So relationships, yes, they are complex. And as we enter relationships, it's important that we have some working knowledge and understanding about who we are and sort of the trajectory of who we may become. What would change look like? So when you sit with the person you're entering into a relationship with, what conversations are you having ahead of time? Such as, what if I change? What if I become more outgoing or less so? What if I want to travel or hold hands and take a walk or want more affection or communication? What if I become other than who I am right now as I grow? Those are the kinds of conversations we need to have. And what if I change for the worse? What agreements do we make? Is there a line in the sand? And what does uncoupling look like? Because sometimes that is what's needed. When we know deep down that we're someone else now, that our needs in a partnership are different than what they used to be, and you've tried to talk about it again and again and again, sometimes we have to come to that fork in the road and make tough decisions around uncoupling and what that looks like. So as complex as relationships can be, when we see ourselves becoming differently, it's important to be honest with ourselves. When we no longer think or feel the way we once did, there needs to be space to have those hard conversations. And perhaps you are someone willing to have it, and you're with someone who isn't. And so what do you do there? Some people seek individual therapy to process that out and find ways of saying what needs to be said to the person who needs to hear it. Other people reach a point where they say, I've tried and I'm not trying anymore. I'm walking away. Success is not determined by how many years you've been together. It's determined by the ingredients that make up those years: the connection, the communication, the truth telling, the ability to be withstanding when withstanding is what's needed because of the connection and the communication and the truth of what is. Ending a relationship can also be a success, because maybe ending that relationship has allowed you to enter into one with yourself, where you can be more holding, more present with your truth, more honoring of self, as opposed to denying and abandoning and regretting and all of those other things that can build in the corner like dust, just build underneath the cabinet that you've not swept because it's hidden. But when you take a peek, you're overwhelmed by all that has formed. The dust bunnies have legs, they're walking around now. Some relationships are well past their end date, but they remain because of the fear associated with moving on, or maybe the restraint. You feel sort of restrained from decision making. And there are many factors, right? It's complex. It isn't linear. Easier said than done, right? That's real. And if you pause and look in the mirror and ask yourself, is my relationship fulfilling? Does it offer me holding, emotional availability and affection, communication, sounding board? Does it have richness? Or is it like a house where all you have are the walls, and when you open the door, it's empty? What is my relationship? What is it offering me, and what am I offering it? And that isn't about make me happy, do all of these things for me. It's not about that. We are responsible for our own happiness, which also means we're responsible for having these conversations that are leading to our unhappiness. And so today, I invite you to look in the mirror and ask yourself questions about the relationship you're in. And from that information, sit with it and continue to ask yourself as many times as necessary to arrive at truth and clarity. And then ask yourself, what am I going to do now? In what direction do I step? You don't have to have all the answers, just in what direction do I step? And perhaps you ask yourself about your relationship, looking in the mirror, and you say, it is fulfilling. It is holding. It is emotionally available, and there's affection and communication and respect. I'm so grateful to have this. And then you share that with the person you're in a relationship with. You say, I did this little exercise and I want to let you know. And if that isn't true, if it's just not for you, now I'm not going to tell you what decisions to make. We all have to arrive when we arrive. I only hope that awareness brings you clarity and brings you closer to the relationship that you are forming with yourself as you discover what is true.